Has the mechanical age of the bicycle truly passed us? And if so, what is the best peak mechanical drivetrain out there? Just as mankind has moved from various ages like the Golden Age to the Iron Age, I would argue so has the bicycle. We have moved past the mechanical age of the bike to a weird hybrid Electra, Appla, and shitification stage. From where the bicycle was once a symbol of simple human ingenuity to something where all the various parts need charging and apps to operate. There's been a market change, and I don't think there's any clawing that back at this point. For this video, I'm not going to go into why I prefer all mechanical bikes. I've done that in other videos, as you guys know. And again, I don't think I have to state this in every video, but apparently I do. These are my opinions, and you can do whatever you want. There are plenty of channels out there that praise and welcome our AI electronic overlords. This one just happened to not be one of them. So while I think some form of simple mechanical components will exist, it does seem as if, at least in the current environment, the big component companies that start with an S will devote fewer and fewer resources to it. That means unless something radical happens, we might have seen the last of the best mechanical drivetrains. So that's why I'm officially going to launch this series I'm calling Peak Mechanical, devoted to finding the last great mechanical drivetrain. That means cable shifting, cable braking, indexed, and wide range. Although as a general subtext, you should know that you can, pretty much make this drivetrain right now very hassle-free if you're willing to go friction. But I know many people don't, so hence this video series. The reason I'm doing this is because one of the most popular types of content on the channel has always been drivetrain hacking. It was initially born out of necessity when we were living in Montana, and it was essentially 8 months of winter. It all started with the budget mullet series. That was at a time when the only option to get a wide range one by with drop bars that was supported natively was to spend well over $2,000 and get the SRAM mullet setup. It was all the things I hate, too expensive, too proprietary. And at the end of the day, the range was kind of meh. Peak Mechanical is going to be the spiritual successor of that. We're going to explore different known as well as different rumored combos, as well as weird hacking things together so you can get the drivetrain you want and not just what's sold to you. If you feel like you're being gaslit when people tell you all you need is 1-to-1 gear ratio as your lowest gear, this series is for you. We've all seen these comments online where it says this should work with this, or I did this and it works, but no video proof, just a lot of bold claims. So in this series, I want to test those rumored combinations and kind of give them a ranking in terms of true compatibility. So think of this series as part Mythbusters for shifting. I know, very exciting and ultra niche stuff. And while I know that this sounds just like weird, nerdy bike shit, one of my favorite types of comments I get on this channel are when people tell me that they started working on their bikes and putting together their own personal drivetrains because of watching our videos. So while this series is nominally about finding the best mechanical drivetrain, in my opinion, I also hope that you take away much more, that you lose the fear of working on your bike, that you gain skills and information to put together the bike you actually want, and also hopefully illuminate that one of the distinct advantages of mechanical is that you can even do this. It's an open system compared to electronic shifting where you're locked in the box and you don't have any choice. Okay, so what are the guidelines, the guardrails for what I'm classifying as a peak mechanical drivetrain? Again, I want to emphasize that peak mechanical for me is probably going to be vary from what you guys consider peak mechanical. But regardless, with this series, ideally you'll have the tools to learn to assemble whatever drivetrain you want. So for me and the scope of the videos I'm going to create, it's clearly got to be all mechanical. So that means mechanical shifting, mechanical braking, no fluids or electronics involved. This is bikes at their simplest and most durable, just cables and gears. Another parameter I'm setting is that all these drivetrains have to use the Shimano Hyperglide free hub. It's probably one of the most prolific and flexible free hub bodies out there. It's capable of taking drivetrains, everything from 7-speed to 11-speed. So no XD drivers or microspline or weird 9 or 10 tooth cogs for this series. But then again, you do you. Another feature of all these drivetrains is that it's going to have wide range, low gears, and 2x. These are three things that just go together. You can't get a truly wide range drivetrain, actual low gears without going 2x, in my opinion. And lastly, for the sake of this series, they're all going to be indexed. I personally am perfectly fine running friction shifting drivetrains, but I get that some people don't want to go there. They think it's too difficult. You know, they want the clicky shifting. So the drivetrains in this series are going to be indexed with the constant subtext, or at least I hope you take away from this exercise, is that you can make everything work, and it would be so much easier and cheaper if you just went friction. Is Peak Mechanical a 9, 10, or 11 speed drivetrain? You know, there's going to be a different number for each person, and there's just so many combinations to try out and problems that increase as we add more gears. So my plan is to do all of them. What is the Peak Mechanical drivetrain for 9 speed, for 10 speed, for 11 speed? And I think it's an interesting exercise because it brings up questions of cable pull and compatibility, and, you know, why did the bike industry get us into this mess in the first place? And lastly, this is probably the least important, but also the most difficult to execute with this, is that the components have to look nice. Silver, classic aesthetics when possible. This might be the toughest requirement to meet, since everything is dripping with that tacky, you know, low poly count, you know, Cybertruck aesthetic. A lot of modern components have lost that smooth, sculpted, you know, classical look to them. Okay, I know what some of you are thinking. This is very niche content, and that's because it's very niche content. But I think this is where I think YouTube excels at, and also where I need your help. Niche, informative, and entertaining videos like this, I think, has always been the greatest asset of YouTube. But it's also the kind of content that YouTube doesn't necessarily always reward, unless you do some like clickbait title or some idea that's been beat to death, like, you know, can you use a gravel bike as a road bike? Which is faster, a road bike or a gravel bike? I hate those videos. The videos don't necessarily get the play it deserves. And generally, you know, content, I think, just gets dumber and dumber and more extreme on the platform. All that to say that doing kind of niche content like this is a bit of a risk. Either it slaps, you know, I just happen to get the title and thumbnail and framing just right, or it bombs and it makes me question my life decisions once again. So all that to say, if you like this content, join us on Patreon. It gives us a budget to not only buy the components, and these things kind of add up pretty quickly, but beyond just having the budget to buy the components, probably more importantly, it allows us to take a risk on non-algorithmic friendly content. So not clickbaity content, which a lot of you say that you don't like, but you still end up clicking on. So think about it like this. It's like your favorite indie band continuing to develop their sound, rather than having to create that cheesy pop record to pay the bills. I've got a ton of interesting and really surprising combos to test. Some of them I'm testing actively, and I'm actually building up this bike behind me so I can do more than one drivetrain test at a time, and hopefully get this out in a little bit quicker timeline. If you guys have ideas for shifter and derailleur combos that you think meet those requirements, so 2x, wide range, all mechanical, low gears. Maybe it's something you've done yourself. Maybe it's something that should theoretically work, but you don't know for sure. Leave those in the comments below. But in general, let me know what you think about this series. Hopefully you're into it. I've gotten lots of good feedback from the hacks I'm already doing. I just want to formalize it, put it in a set searchable series, and just put it out there. I think when all the content you see is, you know, how great electronic shifting is and mechanical is dead, that kind of biases the whole perspective. This is my way of counteracting that narrative, showing that mechanical drivetrains still have a ton of value. You learn a lot about your bike, and you can truly customize the gearing instead of being subject to the whims of the big S companies. So if you like that and you believe in the ethos of this series, definitely watch the videos, support us on Patreon, and as always, keep the supple side down.